Come on in. Hey everybody, it's Byron and Danielle and Abby. We're gonna give everybody a minute to kind of come on in. Uh, right now, it looks like there's only a half dozen or so people. I think we had right at 100 that had registered for it, so we'll see how many show up. But the recording, we always know, is just as important here. So we'll give everybody a minute. So for Abby and Danielle's purposes, we are recording. It is a live mic, so if you got to say something, mute out, and we'll get rolling here in another minute or two. So everybody, hang tight for a second. All right. Hey everybody, just we have some folks coming in. We're going to be another minute or two. We're going to give everybody a second to kind of get situated. We're pretty excited about this one. If you were part of the Catering Independence Day webinar last month, we're very excited for you to continue hanging on with us. This is going to be obviously a continuation of that initial webinar that we did, and then we're going to have four more after this one that all talk about different segments of the third to first party migration that we talk about. So hopefully this will be great. We've got some really good information in here. We have some really kind of cool changes coming as well that we're going to kind of clue everyone in on a little bit as we go. We're going to be shipped. This is the last time you have to deal with my limited technology skills. As we're going to explain something toward the end of the show that we had a really great offer from the team at Deliver That, and their wonderful technology software that they have are going to begin hosting the webinars starting next month from a technology side. Still be Danielle and I as your dutiful host and hostess, but for the most part, we're excited to have them handle the technology side and hopefully be able to have less cumbersome clumsiness that these 58-year-old hands are dealing with most of the time. So hang tight with us. We're going to give everybody just another minute or so for some folks that might be arriving late. It looks like we're almost up to 30 or so. So everybody hang tight for just a second, and we'll get rolling in about a minute. All right, everybody. So, welcome to the webinar. We're very excited. Thank you for being a part of the Catering Independence series. Obviously, this is part two of that six-part series that we were talking about earlier. This one is going to have everything to do with program structure and then what we think are the most important elements of the program structure piece. Hey, Tara. I saw Tara come in. I think Tara must have used my login or something. Not real sure, but you're welcome to sit in if you like, Tara. But as part of the catering independence, this is about what are some things that you're going to need to do to move from third to first party, and part of the logic that we want to talk through today is the importance of having someone owning it within either your restaurant or within your restaurant group or within your brand. We've seen too many people try to tackle doing this in addition to wearing other hats, and a lot of times that people don't understand the magnitude of it all. So we want to kind of cover some of the magnitude today. Danielle's really the subject matter expert on this, as she's helped stand up multiple catering programs around the country, and most people, most of the brands, I don't want to speak for you, Danielle, but I know when you sit down and you start laying out the layers of all the things that they need to do, most of the time there's a little shock. Would that be right? So, and introduce yourself as well today. So,
Yes, great. Thank you, Byron. Yes, hi everyone. I'm Danielle Guzzetta, founder of RevGen Marketing, and I focus on helping restaurants generate revenue primarily outside of their four walls. As a CMO for many, many years in the restaurant space, I focused so much on getting butts in seats, didn't really look outside the walls, and there's a huge amount of opportunity, obviously, post-COVID. It's very funny. I stood up my first catering program probably 3 years before COVID hit, and it's been going strong ever since. And what I can tell you was when I first started standing up catering programs, Everybody was saying, get me on EasyCater, get me on EasyCater. I need to be on EasyCater. How do I get on EasyCater? Walk me through how to get on EasyCater. And now the topic has changed and the
Yeah.
conversation is get me to first party, get me to first party. I need to move off because EasyCater takes a lot of the profits. I know Byron agrees. There is absolutely, positively a place for EasyCater. You just want to make sure you're managing your business model properly. I know I'm in the process of working with one of my clients. When I started with them back in May, 44% of their business mix was coming from a third party platform. We have now moved them to about 30%. So that you want that number to continue to get down to about maybe 10%, right? I mean, your goal should be 90% first party, 10% third party. You want to start on the third party platforms because you want to fish where the fish are, but ultimately you want to move to own one, all your profit, and then two, your customer data. And that's really what we'll talk about today.
So yeah, we've got a lot of information to cover. So Miss Abby is here. Baby has still not gotten here yet, so Abby's going to be handling the technology side of everything for us a little bit today. So Abby, if you want to say hey real quick and tell people if they have questions, our chat feature.
Yeah, any questions, any comments? We have the Q&A and we have the chat open, so I'll have those open in the background. Anything you want to add or ask, just drop those in there and we'll make sure that we get them addressed by the end of the call today.
And just to let you know, questions are always encouraged. We love the questions because we feel like if you've got that question, I can almost guarantee you there's someone else on the call or somebody else that's going to be watching the video post that is going to have some questions as well. So we're going to get into the slides here shortly, but I wanted to clarify something on the front end of this. A lot of times when we start talking about ownership, and the importance of having someone leading this within your organization, one of the questions that tends to come up pretty often is, can we afford to have a person in place? And what I think we want to be able to show you is that I don't know if you can afford not to. If you really want to go after this business with a certain level of aggression. And part of the reason I say that is because it goes back to catering math. And I know Danielle and I have talked about this on previous webinars. If you're first joining us, please understand that a lot of times we may be repeating some things because catering is a finite amount of information. It's just how you dig into it and how deeply you want to. But catering revenue itself, if let's say it's catering is 10% of your revenue, I can wager that for some of you, it may be the most important 10% because it's the 10% you have to work the hardest at getting. But it's also the 10 most profitable percentage points of your business because it's incremental revenue in that your rent is fixed, your salaried labor is somewhat fixed, your hourly labor is probably mostly fixed because you have to have a certain minimum number of hours to run the operation to begin with. And so to understand that the margin with catering hopefully will give you enough extra bandwidth to where you can either hire for this position or remove some responsibilities from the person that is going to be leading it from other things they might already be doing. So the point meaning is that I don't think this is a hat someone can wear in addition to 3 other hats. I don't know if your district operations manager can also function as your leader of catering. I don't know if your senior director of marketing can also be your director of catering. It's possible that some folks are talented enough to do it. It's just I don't know if it's necessarily the right thing or the fair thing to put that on their shoulders. And so we're going to talk a lot about ownership today and what that person needs to own and how. The other feature you're going to see that we did a little bit different this time is at the bottom you've got a feature called Deep Dive. And so what you're going to see down here is where if you can see toward the bottom, it's going to say deep dive. When you get this website, which is the Catering Independence Day website we shared last month, I'll share it again. This presentation is going to be there. When you're going through the presentation, if you click the deep dive button, you're going to get some pop-ups of information. So we didn't want to, there's so much to cover and so much depth to cover. We know we can't talk about everything on these calls, but we also want to make sure you have access to the data if you need it. And so we've built a deep dive feature into each slide for you to be able to then come in and say, okay, I want to learn more about every catering dollar, or I want to focus more on how to build my own demand engine. There's going to be some topics that are in there for you to be able to go in when you're looking at this at a later time, or if you're sharing this with other folks in your organization. So we'll go ahead and kind of get rolling a little bit. So the premise of this first slide is obviously the ominous dystopian view of the restaurant on third-party lockdown because your catering is all tied into these third-party marketplaces and you're feeling restricted, you're feeling chained, almost held back, where you cannot really grow your catering because you're overly reliant on what they choose to give you or let you be seen, or how they're going to rank you in the searches. So the idea that yes, right now 15 to 40% of every order is taken, and they're not even your customer. You're just kind of a big vending machine. You pay the commission on every transaction. They control the relationship, and the data that rightly probably should be yours belongs on it lives on their platform. So a lot of your revenue right now is going to pay for the marketplace. So it's not like they're paying for the marketplace. You're actually paying to keep the marketplace going. And so the idea for us is, can we help you to find a better path? We do believe that there is a path that exists for you to be able to kind of gain your margin, gain more ownership of your data and your clients, and to give you some of that freedom. Danielle, I'll let you repeat this again. We don't want 0% third party, right? I mean, what's the right number? And for those that weren't here last month, I'd like to share, what do you think is the right number for either a starting location and then a mature location?
I would say starting, you're probably looking at 50-50, I mean, realistically, I think your goal is to get to 90-10. 80-20 is good. If you're giving away more than that, it's too much. It's too much. And you
We
should be
kind of
shifting
lean,
your
yeah.
marketing dollars.
We lean into that 80-20 world. I even think it's 70-30. You can kind of make the margins work a little bit if you're getting good marketing value. If you're not getting good marketing value, if you're just seeing the same clients over and over and you're not getting new clients, if that marketplace is not sending you new businesses to deliver to and you're just delivering to the same ones over and over, at some point you're just giving them your money. So yeah, so the 80-20 I think is where you really do want to be on some of that. And again, if you have any questions along the way, please let me know. Not every slide obviously is going to have a deep dive, but those where we felt like it was necessary will. So okay, so here's why that's why we're here. So this is part 1 of our 5-part Catering Independence series that followed our Independence Day webinar. This is a kind of a joint venture, I guess is the right way to say it, between NCC and RevGen. And then we also had our friends from Olo, from Deliver That, and from Catering Rewards. Our friends from Olo, Catering Rewards, and Deliver That will be co-hosting with us over the next 4. The next one next month will be with Deliver That, talking through the last mile, the delivery process. What should you look for in a provider? Then our friends from Olo will join us for the order technology. What do you need in an order tech? What are some of the features that are important to you? What makes sense? Then we're going to do catering rewards with customer success and customer service. And that will be with Preet from Catering Rewards, along with Danielle and I. And then Danielle and I will handle the marketing and sales piece on the back end as well, which would take us into December, which hopefully will give everyone kind of the boost you need going into January of 2027. So again, if you have any questions along the way, please let Abby know, put it in the chat or in the Q&A section, and we'll get rolling. So you're going to see a heavy amount of time today focused on the importance of having an owner and having that person with clear role. That's your responsibility, as your job is to support, stand up, maintain this catering program from a third to that first party migration. So one accountable person who owns the outcome. You own ops, tech, marketing, and sales. You set the cadence and keep the program from becoming orphaned, which happens a lot. Danielle can probably say, we talk to brands as somebody in charge of catering, but they got so many other responsibilities. And then they don't do everything. So their job is to make the model clear. They're not the doers. They will do some things, but their job is more of a conductor, an orchestrator, of somebody who keeps things moving on the back end. So Danielle, I know some of these were deep dives were yours, so I kind of we'll give you obviously the chance to kind of talk through it a little bit. Why do you believe having a dedicated person is critical?
I mean, if you don't dedicate a person, a resource, a budget, a separate plan, it's just not going to get done. If everyone is responsible for catering, no one's responsible for catering, right? This is how it works. So it's critically important. Organizations 5 years ago, you never heard of someone just responsible for off-premise or just responsible for catering. I know as a CMO, it always fell under marketing, but my person was doing social, was doing email, was doing catering, and you are just not going to get catering over the line that way. It is not, it's just not enough to hang a shingle. Catering takes a lot of work, dedication, focus, and effort, and that comes with one owner. And look, that owner, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, can look different at a corporate location versus a franchise location versus if you're just one restaurant. And it really doesn't matter as long as you have one dedicated person who owns and is accountable and responsible for it.
So, Danielle, one thing that I want to make sure we stress on this for this group, because I think it's very important, is understanding what your third party marketplace is currently handling that will no longer get handled when you make the migration. And so a lot of times people, their first things they think of, oh, I need the order tech and I need a delivery solution in place of dispatch, right? That's important. But what this the other pieces that everybody always seems to forget about, which is now I have to do the selling. Now I have to do the follow up. Now I'm customer service. Now I have to do order taking. All of those things that your third party are doing that you're paying for now fall onto your shoulders. And I think there's times where that's where people kind of go, well, the most important thing is I need DSP and I need an order tech company. Yeah, those are very important, but that doesn't mean the rest is going to happen. That leader is the person now responsible for making sure that those types of activities get done.
Right.
When we look at the owner, things that the owner must think about daily, that's the one for me that I was like, you kind of start to go, whew. It's one person that's got to do all this, and they don't necessarily have to be the one that does it all, but they at least have to make sure it gets done. Fair. So, are you seeing them as a manager of others, or do you feel like they have to just lead other groups? What's the best?
I feel like the manager, the owner of catering needs to be able to work cross functionally. That is probably the number one thing that I've learned over the time, right? One, you have to have a dedicated person. Two, these people need to work with operations and finance and in-store restaurant and communications and all this kind of stuff. These people may not report to this one person, but this person is responsible to ensure these people are moving in the right direction. And that can really be a challenge. And I have found in organizations that I go into, and I'm here to stand up a catering program, I am this owner, right? That's kind of the orchestration person. I always build a team and I ensure that there's kind of one stakeholder from each part of the organization, so that I've got an ops person, I've got a tech person, I've got an in-restaurant person, right? I've got a finance person, because it's critically important as you're building this. I might not be doing these things as Byron indicated. They will be responsible, and it's critically important that everyone's coming along for the ride, right? Many times we say marketing people sit in their little corner and they build programs and things that technology and operations cannot execute. That solves this problem when you're kind of all in it together. And there is a lot. There's things that you're right. You think I need technology to place the order. I need someone to deliver the order. That is about this much of what really goes into orchestrating a good, successful catering program.
And ignore my bad check marks there. I've never been able to draw with a mouse very well, but who is following up and are they ordering again? Those are two pieces that a lot of times with a third party marketplace, you're not really worried about, the repeat order or the follow up. You're just waiting on the next order, whatever it is that's going to come or be sent to you. But when you're doing this yourself, in order to build your base and ultimately to build your sales, you've got to make sure that you're following up post order. And we'll talk about customer success and customer service a little bit later. But then validating, is this happening? Are we getting repeat business, and what is the frequency, and who are my top clients? And that's a component of this that I think is very important as well, that whoever leads this needs to be able to understand how to identify how we're doing. And I don't know, how do I make, Abby, do we know how to if I turn that off, will those check marks come away? I don't. Well, they might be on every screen now, so I apologize,
No,
everybody.
you're good. You're good.
Um,
I don't
so,
see.
okay, so ultimately, this person is responsible for 5 disciplines. They're going to be responsible for making sure that not that they're doing the operations, but that ops has everything they need to be successful. And they also are in charge of securing the technology, which would be again an Olo, a Monkey, a Toast, Caters, and there's a bunch of them out there. And finding the right one for your brand and what you sell and what's the size of your organization. They're going to be responsible for the marketing, and which is ultimately the conversion of third to one, or the acquisition of new folks, or how to get the word out, how to create brand awareness, and even more so than brand awareness, catering awareness. Because I think there's a lot of times I'll talk to. We have some Chick-fil-A owners that we work with, and I had one the other day that was just telling us. He goes, you know what? He said, there's still, I would imagine, 1 out of every 4 of our clients still have no clue we cater. And they're busy as heck, and there's people all the time because it's not something that's necessarily promoted heavily. And so understanding where that fits, sales obviously is the relationship, the rapport, the interactions, the community relationships that you make within that 2-3 mile radius. And then customer success. How do you retain, reward, and serve customers so they keep coming back to you? So this owner has a lot of responsibility. It doesn't mean that they are, again, physically doing all of these pieces, but they are going to get, hopefully they'll be the person that helps you get your technology established and gets your delivery established. And then at the same time, they're going to have to maintain the relationships with those entities as well. So, all right. So the model, though, we believe does fit. Now you can see the check marks on the poor man's face. So I apologize. I don't know how to get it off. So we got check marks for the rest. That's why I'm not doing the technology starting next month. There's three different approaches. We have the brand level approach, we have the franchise group approach, and then a single restaurant. And we split it up that way on purpose. So Danielle, since you work with a lot of, I'd say at the brand level with a lot of folks, what are you looking for in that person? What are is it a leadership, or is it more of a multitasker? Is it some, if you're talking to a brand that's saying, I need to invest in a catering, somebody to own this for me, what does that person look like? Do they have to have catering experience? What are some things that you're looking for?
I mean, catering experience would be ideal, right? Because catering, let's be real, catering is a different beast than online, than in restaurant, than your takeout menu. And brands that are not treating it differently are not winning at catering. So yes, ideally catering would be great, but they don't need to. Yes, they have to be very thorough. Yes, they have to be very organized. They have to be very proactive. And I think one of the biggest challenges is getting the rest of the organization to come along for the ride. Let's be realistic. Operators are busy. They are working crazy. The guest in front of them, they're right there. People complaining, the check is wrong, etc. Now we put catering on them. So how do you bring the rest of the organization along to say, hey, this is a great thing for the company. We are opening up an entirely new revenue stream for the company versus this is a burden. And I've worked with both types of organizations, and the ones that treat it as this is a journey, this is great for the company, not a burden, are the ones that are really killing it, right? And so it's instilling that ownership in each person that owns a piece of it to say, hey, I'm part of this bigger team. This is what I need to do. So those kind of skills, communication is key. You can sit here and decide on a program and implement a program. If that communication does not trickle down to the person at the cash register in the restaurant, it's all for naught, right? Byron said sometimes people don't even know that brands cater, right? Not only taking it one step further, but the proactiveness. Somebody walks up to a register to pay, they're in scrubs. Do you work at a hospital? Do you work at a medical facility? We do catering. Here's a card. So it's not just being educated that catering is taking place. It is actively seeking out and looking at the audience in front of you. We always had a saying that you would do a once walk around during lunch and during dinner around the dining room and look for people in scrubs and with logoed, construction logos on their shirt, corporate offices, people in suits, to really work the room and think, hey, who's a catering? Everyone's a catering opportunity. Who's a catering customer?
So at the brand level, which that's happening more at the restaurant level, what you just described there. But you need somebody that can educate at the each location,
That's what I'm
right?
saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Communication down to the register, all the way
So
down.
let's talk a little bit about is that off premise and catering in the same human? I see more of that because off-prem
I
catering is
think so.
obviously part of
Yes.
off-prem, but it includes so much more, right? It includes
So much more. Yes.
your meal time or whatever the things there. So do you believe that is one position, a
I
VP?
do.
Okay.
I do. I
And
do believe it's
where does it become more of a director, senior manager, director level into a VP type level? Do you know any thoughts on that? I mean, obviously
yeah,
it
I mean,
varies, but
as your catering grows, right, and becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, eventually your goal is to outgrow this one person, whether they come in as a manager or the director. But I have been a VP of off premise along my road trip. And, this then extends outside of just catering. It is, how are we getting or food in the Amazon hub centers to feed 5,000 people for lunch, to feed 5,000 people for dinner, right? How are we doing pop-ups? How are we getting the food out into the community? So as it grows, I think that position and opportunity grows. And there's many brands out there that do have a vice president of off-premise and catering.
and I'd like to see more. Obviously, brands have that role because I think what we end up seeing is a catering leader or a catering, even a director, but then answering to a COO or answering to sometimes directly to the CEO. And I think what you end up with is that person that is if they have a senior manager or a director tag, they're still so hands in the dirt of this program because that's an expectation there. But yet there's also these leadership expectations just really hard to fit in one person. And so I'm a big proponent of if you're big enough where you need a VP of catering and off-prem, then you also may need a catering director in there as well to be able to help execute, but also work with each individual location, whereas your VP will probably be more in the planning strategy, working at the higher levels. And so understanding where that second role even comes in, I think is very important. You'll see on here some of the things that we suggest at the brand level. Define the 1P catering strategy and revenue goals, own the economics, own the pricing, the margins, the fees, the delivery. So they're owning that part of this. There's if you've been on these webinars before with me, I love CFOs. If you're out there, I love you. I think you're fantastic. I think sometimes you get in the way of catering progress, but only because that's your job. And I get it. I think there's times where getting your person in charge of catering, let them have a voice in what that looks like. Let them have an opinion on what the pricing should be. Not necessarily from what makes the most sense on an EBITDA. We want to make sure we're disciplined and doing the right thing there. But there's so many nuances, and we've seen brands price themselves out of their client base for whatever reason. In other words, if there's a perceived value of look at your $18 to $22 entree and then look at the $18 to $22 of value you get for other, and if you're not offering the same value, you're probably a little high. We'll get into some of that. Didn't mean to get off on a tangent, but the idea behind this is to understand all the different layers of things that you need a leader to be able to think through and do. And at some point, it becomes too much for one person. I think in a restaurant level or in a small organization level, you're doing some of those same things, but it's a lot of the decisions may be more at a corporate level being made. So at the franchise owner, multi-unit owner level, where you've got 3 locations, 5, 8, that person, your leader is going to be more hands-on, probably working with you directly as an owner on some of the specifics, and maybe that becomes more of a director level position that can wear both hats a little bit. And then if you're in a single restaurant situation, it's really going to be more day-to-day type stuff that your leader is going to be responsible for, and obviously having the relationship with the DSP and having the relationship with your order tech companies for anything that happen if it's not handled at a corporate level. So, Danielle, anything else on this page real quick?
No, I think you covered it.
We do believe that again at the brand level. We're supporting a lot of locations. Less hands in the dirt, more hands in the air. franchise group is probably going to be a little bit of both, and then a single restaurant, heavy hands in the dirt, a lot of day-to-day function and relationships that you're going to be working through there inside the restaurant and out. So I think the most important thing I wanted to kind of cover on this slide is that you're not just making a technology switch. And I think a lot of times people think that for me to convert from a third to a first party, basically it's about changing the technology. And they're going to go from the third party platform to my platform or to my website, or and it's not about technology, and it's not about just having a new delivery model. It's a combination. You are not just changing the tech, you're changing a lot of things. You're changing the owner, who's accountable for everything. You're changing the type of clients that you go after and how to acquire them. You're designing your margin model. So you now get to control your pricing. You get to control your discounts, all of those things. And you're ultimately now responsible for your own demand, because you've given up the commission that you get because they are generating the demand, or at least used to. I don't know how well it's happening for you guys right now, but if you have to generate your own demand, that sits it squarely on you. And so it's one of those kinds of things that we know you want it, we know it's important to you, but you're going to have to understand what is it that you're taking on as you do this. Otherwise, the migration is going to take forever. If you've got to be able to have the structure in place. I've seen restaurants try to do it the other way. Well, we're just going to turn ezCater off, and then we're going to just figure it out. And it's just what you end up with is this vacuum that kind of comes in.
Right.
Danielle, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's not the answer. No.
So, yeah, again, there's a deep dive, the operating model, not a technology switch, and then own, serve, grow. That's one of yours, right? I think, Danielle, that was one of the subject matter you had on there. You want to go through that own, serve, grow a little bit? Because it talks about owning the relationship. I know is important.
Right. Look, years ago, my father used to say, cash is king. It's not. Data is king, right? And so you want to own that data. And there are a lot of ways to own that data. Even if you are on ezCater, as we talked about, you want to migrate away from ezCater. There's ways for you to own that data. One, anything that comes directly to you, if you have a reverse link on your website and you're capturing customer data, bam, put them right in your CRM and start a catering drip campaign on them, right? So that now they're not going over to ezCater, they're starting to come to you, right? You want to make sure that you are communicating, that you have first party, that you can handle delivery, that you are going to be reliable. I usually tell my clients that are on ezCater, start pulling back the marketing dollars, stay on ezCater, but start pulling back the marketing dollars that they're putting into PPP or Easy Rewards, and slowly start shifting the focus to 1P. Discount. Stickers on your box that says cater with us and we'll give you a discount. Upon checkout, there's a little box as you're checking out on the website. If you click here, you'll receive a discount on your next catering order. Email campaigns, SMS campaigns, social posts. Which is it?
Post-it notes inside the
Post-it notes, right. So you want to start slowly trying to get as much data as you can. Data is king. And then you start your drip campaigns. But again, to Byron's point, these are things you probably are not thinking about when it comes to owning the entire catering model. And it's, again, the follow-up, which we're going to talk about. But yes, data is king.
Well, and
Clearly.
couple of stuff I want to share about data real quick too is AI has made it a whole lot easier for you to learn more about your trade area, whether it's a trade area analysis that you want to do to kind of get a sense for what businesses are in your area, what your competitors are charging. We actually were able to go into Houston and within about 20, 30 minutes had an AI breakdown of every fast casual restaurant in the Houston market and what their price point was for group meals, individual meals, breakfast, all those different things. And then what we were able to do is lay it all out for the client to be able to see that they were on the high end versus some of their competitors that were actually $10 to $14 a person, where they were sitting 18 to 22. And what it did, it opened some eyes because a lot of times as you're trapped in your four walls, you're not looking at things like that. So I guess to my point is that's relational data, but you can also find clients. You can now with AI build an entire database for yourself within 20, 30 minutes as well. I did one in the Texas market yesterday, generated 1,200 businesses of a certain industry type that we're targeting. So the idea behind this, that you can control your data, you have to have a place to put it into, and then
That's it,
monitor it
right.
and keep it updated. But the prospecting and the targeting and that data is easier than it ever has been if you've got someone with the affinity to do it. So Abby, go ahead.
100%. And it's Easy Cater right now is kind of more of a one size fits all, right? Their model is corporate locations, and that is great for some businesses, these Fortune 500 businesses that want to bring catering into the boardroom for leadership meeting, things like that. That is awesome. But what about more of the blue collar, right? You are not going to find that kind of data or customer on Easy Cater. Well, how are you going to find that? You're going to find it through chat, AI. Show me all the auto dealers within a 3 to 5 mile radius of my location. You can clarify what is your demographic, what is the spend level, and it will literally spit out for you everything you need. Yes, you've got to migrate it over into a CRM tool, but bam, you do that, and you can do like a one-time email, or you can start reaching out to these people. That's like phase 5 down the line. I mean, some of you people on the call already have a very, very strong catering program. Who is working it proactively? I mean, that's what Byron and his team do. And I have brought him in on many occasions with my clients to work that proactive angle, getting new clients through the door. So there's multiple ways that you can get this data, right? We usually use third party to acquire a customer, and then one party to keep them and keep them coming back. So there's
Yeah.
a lot that goes into it.
So Abby, you had a question, or
Yeah, we just had someone that asked if Easy Cater finds out, will they block them or not give them the order? They asked this a few minutes ago.
find out what?
So,
I'm sorry.
they're probably asking about a couple things. One, they're probably asking, so in regards to collateral in the bag. So
Oh,
if you just put a flyer in an Easy Cater order, Easy Cater will take it out and throw it out. We have creatively found a way to communicate. At least I have a big pizza brand. We are putting a sticker on the inside of their pizza box, a big sticker that says, next time you order from brand X, Y, and Z. We're doing that with our mealtime, and we are doing that with our catering order. Take $5 off or $25 off your $250. So if it's in a place that's a stick on, if you just throw literature in there, they will flag it. And that's probably the question that's being asked.
I don't want to be ignorant here, but how unless the DSP is sharing that information, how would EasyCater even know?
A lot of times, the educator will tell the driver, check in the bag. Is there any
Okay.
collateral literature like that? So we have found kind of a little bit of a workaround. You too should be putting some kind of catering material in, like every single order that leaves, not just catering order, but every single order that leaves your restaurant on your mealtime to push catering, right? Right now, we're talking about back to school. We're putting flyers in backpacks with their kids. Hey, come in for a free pizza with your parent. When the parent buys a large, you get a small little. So there's a lot of creative ways. And that's why this one dedicated resource really needs to think about, how do I get at that clientele?
I'll tell you what we used to do is you have a letter that says thank you for your order, appreciate it. Here's a letter, here's a code, here's my name, here's my number, here's your receipt. You fold it in an envelope, you seal it, and you put on the outside client receipt, and they'll see it that way. And that way your driver's not going to open a sealed envelope. There's
Right.
ways to do this if you're creative enough. The goal here is not so much to steal their business either. That's the other side of this. I think a lot of times people think your third to first migration means you have to move the client from third to first. And I think you can move some, and I think Danielle touched on that a little bit. There's an Easy Cater client is an Easy Cater client for a reason. They like the convenience, they like the rewards, they order with enough frequency that it's beneficial for them to save their orders, etc. I know, and this is here I get to be a little controversial, I guess. I don't know. As restaurant catering folks that are on the call here, your thought is, well, that's the kind of client I want. I want the client that's going to order frequently. The problem with that is the client that orders frequently has a lot of restaurant partners they order from because they don't want to burn their people out. They will not order from the same restaurant 3 times a week. That's just not realistic. So what you're going to end up with is if somebody orders once every 5 weeks and somebody orders once a week, I don't know if you're going to get any more from that specific client. So my point is go after targets that are your fit for your brand. Are you a brand that is seen as a celebration, a special? Are you elevated? Are you a unique brand? You're not going to get as many orders because you are considered an upgrade from a traditional maybe chip and sandwich. And so it's understanding where you fit, and those orders will be bigger, but you need more of those kinds of clients, which means you need a larger database. And so sorry for us getting off on a client tangent here, but data and owning the customer relationship is so very valuable, but you've got to be able to know who your clients are. And I think that's one of the first steps that an owner of this should do, is identify as who is the catering client that we're looking for. Because if you can do that, then you know where to go find them, and we'll talk through what that looks like in a little bit. Sorry for the the tangent, but I love the dialogue. I love the question. I don't know personally if I would care if they find out. I mean, unless
Not going to cut you off for
no, I
business.
don't
You
think
might
so.
get a little slap on the hand, but there are creative ways as a workaround, right?
So
So
one of the first steps, and this is more of building a program. So Danielle, so it's the understanding of, a lot of times when people go on Easy Cater, and I'm sure you can vouch for this, we said, "Oh, look at our regular menu. Let's put it all on Easy Cater," and that's not the right menu. A lot of times, it's food doesn't travel well. Some food doesn't package very easily. Some can't hold its temp. Some is risk of spillage, whatever it might be. Some of it is going to be high cost, and you may not want to sell a ton of that. You may want to focus on a different item. So, understanding that you need menus that start with your best sellers are those type of menu items that represent you effectively. If you are, there's not, I always found interesting that if you are a sandwich place, then the first thing you would have on your menu would be another type of item. I've seen people that are an Italian restaurant start with with sandwiches. I'm going, well, start with your pastas and then move to your sandwiches, or because if somebody wants a sandwich, they're probably not going to go to an Italian restaurant first. They might not saying they won't go to you and order sandwiches down the line, but my point is, a lot of times if they are in the mood for a sandwich, they're going to start with a sandwich brand. So lead with what's your core, who is you, who defines you, and then a tiered person, packages, a la carte items, individual meals, those kinds of things, and then seasonally based type opportunities. I think are always exciting. So Danielle, you've done a lot of menu development over the years as well.
yeah,
How do
yeah.
you for a small brand and then maybe a large brand that's just getting into catering, what are some suggestions you would throw?
I think the more streamlined your menu is, people are overwhelmed when there is too much there. I think you want to stick to your core. I think you want to make simple packages. Remember, most people who are ordering large catering for, say, businesses or business meetings or opportunities or churches, they're not they're not as price sensitive than if they're ordering an individual meal. So you can be creative in your packaging, you can be creative in your pricing. But I think that you want to start with, as Byron said, the ones that make the most sense from a margin standpoint, your best sellers. Do not put the whole menu on, consolidate, and come up with packages. You want to make it easy. When a CEO walks in and asks the assistant to place an order for lunch, she's going to want to go in and do this very quickly. So you want to make sure it's clear. You want to make sure it quantifies how many people it feeds. It quantifies what they're getting. So there is a science to crafting a catering menu, I
So
would say.
a lot of times people will set something and then they don't want to change it, right? Because the effort or the work or the time or the whatever it is done. I will challenge you now with AI. You can move things very quickly around if you need to on a menu. But my question to you is, what do you think of seasonal offerings?
Like
The
it.
idea behind it.
If operations can handle it, I absolutely like it. And the way you maybe you just start with a seasonal dessert, right? Can they handle a seasonal dessert, right? As we get into, Halloween, it's pumpkin this or what have you. And so see how, because what you don't want to do is create too much work on the operations team. And the more work you create, are we going to get the order right? Do I have to reprogram my POS? These are all things you have to think about. So I always recommend, if you're going to do seasonal, start with an appetizer, start with a soup, start with a dessert before you get into main dishes. Typically
We
has worked well.
we've worked with polished casual Tex-Mex concept. We've also worked with a fast casual pasta concept. and they would always roll in seasonal offerings in the fall and again at winter time. I think what it does is it breathes life into your catering menu a little bit. If you've got a fan, but maybe there's a little burnout, that new item is always really cool. I know I always think of capriati's in that Thanksgiving sandwich that they do with the turkey and the potato, sweet potatoes, all that. The idea of being able to offer seasonal, I think, is very important. So if you are looking to build, if you're a brand and you have a certain type of menu, and it can be done with sauces or it can be done with desserts easily, like Danielle was saying, I love the idea of being able to offer some seasonality. The last thing I want to touch on here is the importance of individual meals. Versus just having, because I know sometimes people have brands that it lends itself well to buffet, and individual meals are a challenge because of the packaging and it's more expensive and such. But was it 45% are still individual meals, I think is the last thing we heard.
Yeah, and people, there will be people who will actually just search individual meals. So you want to be a subset in that criteria. People go to Easy Cater, there's a little drop down box, search for vegan, individual meals. So you want to be part of that subset. And people that are part of that subset are now starting to, and we'll probably talk about this, work in the upcharge for the packaging, for the extras, for the people don't mind paying it for the individual meal. So I'm a huge fan of that
So an
for many
individual
reasons.
meal traditionally should be more than a per person price for a buffet because of that, right? No,
Correct.
but it should
That's
not,
correct.
but it should not be insanely apart from each other. So if you're $12 or $13 a person at a buffet level, it should not be 22 for the individual meal. Maybe a 12 and 14 or a 13 and 16 or something like that.
Right.
And any thoughts on that real quick before because pricing I think is where we are
No, yeah,
here.
you want to make sure you're covering your labor to portion it out. You want to make sure you're covering your plastic, your lids, your separate packaging, separate bags, all that. You want to make sure that it is, and usually it's maybe a $2 or so difference, and people are willing to pay that. And it's more critically that you are found in that sub search, especially post COVID.
What's your take on pricing for different markets? In other words, versus a one size fits all pricing model, the concept of tiered pricing, what's the right number of tiers? Can you have two different pricing tiers in the same market? In other words, should a downtown store have the same pricing as a suburban store or a rural location? Any thoughts about how you've handled that in the past?
Yes, I am a huge fan of pricing tiers because different markets can bear and tolerate different pricing. And so one size fits all is not going to be ideal. That being said, if you are coming out of the gate and you are just standing up a catering program, don't make yourself crazy. Maybe just have two tiers. Maybe just have two price tiers. Maybe just even start with one price tier, right? But even if you start with two, a kind of a higher end market, a lower end market, ultimately, I have worked with brands that have 10 and 12 tiers. Does it make it more challenging to manage? Yes, of course it does. But at the same time, if you don't, you're leaving money on the table. So I'm a big fan of tiered pricing. You've got to also know your market and do research, right? And see what the market can bear before you set that tiered pricing.
So a downtown location and versus an edge of town location in the same city. So let's use Denver for example. So you're in downtown Denver versus Aurora, on the outside. You might have the exact same catering menu, but your competitors downtown might be in the $20 to $24 per person range, so you can get more because the expectation is there.
Right. Right. I would say, look, if you have one location that's, drive distance for 10, 15 minutes, I'd be careful about pricing them in different tiered, right? But if
Okay.
you're half hour to 1 hour, it's different tiered pricing 100%, especially if it's a major city downtown on the suburbs.
And deliver
Absolutely.
because you have delivery complexities, you have all
That's
kinds of
right.
things that start to surface.
That's right.
So under trade area pricing, we have price competitively with other catering providers in the trade area, not just other restaurants, but dedicated caterers and marketplace alternatives. I'm going to tell you if you are a catering leader or if you're an owner and you want to know, I've got 5 locations and they're all in the suburbs of Nashville. I would do a Nashville trade analysis. AI can search every catering menu in your city and tell you what their box lunch is on it for an individual meal. You need to know where you stand compared to the others. before you even start. And then if you've already got your pricing established, I would still do a trade area pricing analysis to see if you're on the high end or the low end, and then compare your product. So and I listen, if you're from Subway, I love you, but you should be on the value side of this equation. If you are a Capriati's or someone that's got a more upscale sandwich, you're going to be on the higher end. So understand where you fit in the scale, but know, again, this goes back to know where your pricing should be, which will also tell you who your clients are.
Yes.
So go ahead, Danielle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I was just going to make one other point. And I don't know if it's still the same, but I know in my past, Easy Cater would require you to have the same pricing on Easy Cater as you offer on your first party. I don't know if it's been a while since I've been
it's still
over there.
that way.
It's still that way. Here's the workaround. If you have package here, A, B, and C, they get a sandwich, a chip, and a drink for X amount of dollars. You can do the same thing over here. You sub out the drink for a cookie for X amount of dollars and raise your price, keep your price lower. On Easy Cater, you're probably priced up because hopefully you're covering some of your commissions. You want to try to charge less on your 1P. You can afford to charge less because you're not giving away that 30 or 40%. You just have to swap out one item. It just needs to call it something different, swap out an item. So it's going to take some mental math for you to take your Easy Cater menu and change it slightly to go on one party so you can be slightly lower.
And focus on the word slightly there, because what you don't want to do is create a new package that then prices you out. In other words, the idea is that, I'll just add a cookie and I'll charge $5 more. That's not going to cut it. You can get an extra $1.50, $2, $3 maybe, but if you start going too high, then the logic starts to fail. And I've seen restaurants do that. Oh, a sandwich chip and a cookie is $14. Add a drink and it's $22. And all of a sudden we're not selling anything. Nobody's buying this. It was because it's a $22 box lunch that's really worth $14. And you've got to understand, I think, that logic. So it is a fine line, and I think you have to understand your margins. Keep in mind, third party will provide you marketing value. They're handling some of the customer service components on this. So you are paying that. That's the value you want from it. It's just beyond. So what is the right amount? 15 to 20% you're comfortable paying, then maybe you've got a 20% lift you've got to make somewhere on your pricing to offset the part of the commission you're not getting value from, I guess is the right way to say it. Research what comparable catering cost in your market. Your pricing should be competitive but sustainable. For multi-unit brands, establish pricing guardrails that allow flexibility within a defined range. And then large orgs should consider pricing tiers based on cost of living differences, which I think is what do you have to pay your employees in that market? And that's some things that are very important. The other side I was going to talk through was the idea of discounts and how that should be handled. That requires you to have I know some folks that have been doing this for a long time have a food cost calculator. You probably know exactly how much each box lunch or each buffet is going to cost you per person. Having that knowledge tells you what your margins are, and then should in turn tell you what your discount options are if you need to be able to close a deal. That's getting into, again, the sales side of things, the marketing side of things, but knowing where do you have some flex in your discount pricing to be able to do it. Again, these drop downs will have some more depth for you. I would love, Danielle, what's your take on community pricing? For us, we have clients. This is one of the biggest things we always encourage them is to have special pricing for those 4 or 5 types of clients that just don't have a big enough budget that you can still support. What are some, for example, we have teachers, Black Friday, and churches here as an example on the images, but have you had a strategy in the past on how you approach community pricing, and then how do you limit it to just certain groups?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of community pricing, community outreach. These are the types, the auto dealers, they only have a limited budget. So if you want to be considered, and they come out a lot, churches, schools, auto dealers feed their employees every single Saturday. You want to be able to get on this rotation. It's not necessarily discounting your current pricing. It's creatively coming up with, let's say a school has $10 per head. That's all they can afford. Well, maybe it's only a half a sandwich, or maybe it's a sandwich and a chip and a drink for 12. So you want to look at the margins of your items that you're offering and come up with a package that meets their needs. I've had many times people will reach out to a restaurant and say, I only have $12 per head to spend. Sorry, we don't have anything. No, you do. Creatively figure out what that looks like so that you can keep money and they can make the deal work, because these are the ones that continue to come back.
So the idea of being able to do, like you said, a half sandwich or a smaller portion or a slimmed down box lunch. So instead of a sandwich, chip, cookie, and a fruit cup or whatever that might be, you pull one or two items out. One brand that we work with in Texas is a Tex-Mex fast casual brand. They basically just do a burrito. They have a burrito and a cookie, and they're able to do a sub $8 on it. But the burrito is limited to, whether it's ground beef or chicken or veggie. And so again, limit your options. So you are proving to the clients that need this, hey, I'm willing to work with you, but you're doing it as a good steward of the business. And so these types of community programs, they're when you work with them, there is no other appreciation like you've ever seen. And I will always, regardless of what your price point is, the key to when you're opening a restaurant or you're building a catering program in a community, churches, schools, nonprofits, they're your pathway, they're your doorway into the community. And so if somebody says, oh my goodness, ABC restaurant just delivered last week, they did this really cool $10 program for us, but the food was amazing. We went and had dinner there the next night and had a great time. And now the spouse of the teacher or the somebody that works at the church now goes, oh, well, you should try them for your company. Don't underestimate the value of these, because I think a lot of times people, to your point, Danielle, like you were saying, they think discount. They go, "Oh no, I can't afford it. I'm not going to do it. I can't afford it because I don't want to discount it because then nobody values my product and all these things that we always hear. You don't want to diminish it. I'm not saying we're not saying diminish the quality of your product. So offer a value product for these certain windows, because I think if you do that, the benefit on the back end is astronomical. You can't measure it.
Yes. And statistically, Byron, the stat is you will see a 47% halo effect due to a catering order, meaning 47% will come back at some time and give your restaurant a try, whether it's a meal, a dine-in, a catering, what have you. So you got
So
to
we have
take that fact into account.
churches, schools, nonprofits, car dealers, and local orgs that order regularly. They also have frequency. And Danielle said car dealers, the other one. They order with frequency, they order with regularity. So the ability to have something in their price range, that's a repeat client. And if your margins are intact, I wouldn't worry so much about the top line, but are your margins intact? Are you making the pricing margin that you're looking for? Community pricing builds goodwill and creates word of mouth, and no marketplace can replicate. And these orgs often order for events, meetings, and appreciation days, recurring revenue with minimal acquisition cost once you've got your foot in the door. The other thing I would tell you is a good one to be able to have leniency on pricing is hotels that have meeting space or venues that have meeting space, because you're going to get the frequency again that you're hungry for. But if you've got a hotel, I used to work with a Country Inns and Suites. They had a hotel meeting room that held up to 40 people, and they would order from us at least twice a week, because we would then bring lunch for the sales manager and the general manager as part of it. But they were feeding, because every time there's a different group coming through, there's no burnout factor. And that's why people want that pharmaceutical relationship business. Well, there's also other options and ways to get that recurring revenue. I would tell you hospice companies are another one you should go after more aggressively. They don't have the same budget as pharma, but they have a lot of times a need for breakfast, but they also have a lot of need frequency. So there's certain things out there, understanding where it sits. So, and then special promotions like Black Friday, Back to School, Nurses Week, Teacher Appreciation, all have a need for this type of a program. Volume discounts tiered for larger recurring orders. And then first order incentives are the other one that you might want to consider being able to have some price variances on. I've seen a lot of people do it. When I see an owner who is heavily invested in catering in their restaurant approach a potential client with if you order from me at least every 3 weeks, I'll give you this ongoing 15% discount or whatever it might be. That's somebody who's worked the math and has done this very intelligently. And so I know some owners out there that maybe even on this call are going to listen to it at some point that have done an amazing job. And again, it goes back to the want to back into the community. All right, so we're got about 15, 20 minutes left. We're going to go through one or two more slides and then we'll cover what's coming. But packaging, and I know this is a passion point for Danielle as well, because a lot of times people feel like they can just go to the restaurant supply store and just buy clamshells or plastic tops with black trays and not have any identification on them. What's your anything you want to share on that real quick?
Yeah, I would say out of the gate, as you're standing up a catering program, packaging can be very expensive. You do not need to come out of the gate with custom packaging and printing on your packaging, but what you do need to come out of the gate with is packaging that is sustainable and can travel well. It's not going to leak. Again, here's a perfect example. This, this is corrugated board or whatever. You don't have to print the logo on the side. That's going to cost you an arm and a leg. You can do printed stickers. So it's not critically important that you have complete branded first rate packaging out of the gate. You might elevate to that. You want your catering program to take off before you start investing in that. It is critical that you have well sealed containers and bags that do not leak. And you absolutely want to take advantage of branding because that stuff is left in the office and that can simply be a printed sticker that goes on the top or on the side for people to be well aware of who catered their lunch that day.
Well, and I was going to say something real quick about that. So I've worked in the sticker. If you know me, you already know this probably, but I sell the vinyl records at a record convention a couple of times a year, and I have these professional stickers made, and you can get them made in increments of 3, 4, 5,000, and they're not that expensive, 60, $70, and they're easily peel and stick and put onto something like that. I was meeting with Tara and Teresa on our team earlier, our COO and our senior director of ops, and one of the things they said is make sure you tell them to put a phone number or their QR code on these stickers so people will know. I know Tara was on the border for many years, very passionate about making sure that you get good brand awareness, that people know that it's your brand. I know at Honey Baked years ago, one of the first things we had were branded napkins because at least it was something that gave your brand something there. Or we would take a cup that had the Honey Baked logo and put the forks in it or something like that. So there would be some visibility, and then we had stickers. So we hadn't gone real deep at the beginning into a lot of packaging when it was at Honey Baked, but we would use stickers, we would use napkins, we would use cups. Danielle, and I don't know the right way to approach this one necessarily, but let's say that the brand is not very on top of the packaging component here. But at the restaurant level, they want to do something like it. What have you ever dealt with what do you call them? The fold over cards or any other things that you can think of off the top of your head that a local restaurant might be able to do to stay within the protection of the brand, but at the same time, help identify who they are?
You mean from a packaging standpoint?
Yeah, so like if in other words, the brand doesn't really offer these tools and solutions, but at the restaurant you want to do something, what could you do?
Understand. I mean, I think stickers, you could put a little card in there. I mean, there's a lot of things that just to be creative, put something in there that's a bounce back. To get the customer to come back. Is that kind of what you're
just something to identify that is the restaurant? Because how many times have we walked into an office and there's food and it's amazing, but there's nothing identifying the restaurant?
Absolutely. One of my clients, when they were doing larger catering orders, just kind of did a little fold over that said, catering provided today by brand X, Y, and Z. This picture right here does a very good job because remember, a lot of times they'll take the lid off, throw the lid out, but there, bam, it's on the side, it sits there, goes back in the refrigerator, what have you. But yes, catering provided by, as they set up, the person puts that right out there. You can have some other leave behind, you can have some bounce back, little 4x6 cards that will drive business back in.
Amazon used to sell these peel backs that are about 4x6, 6x8. They're not real big, but they're almost like they have a little stand up where they'll stand up for you. If you could get just some stickers made of your logo, and like you said, catering provided by, and have your logo professionally done, and just leave it on the table, you might be making a 50 cent to $1 investment. I know those can add up. But I also look at it this way: if somebody's ordering a $500 order worth of food, is 50, investing another 50 cents to get 20 people to come dine at your restaurant is worth that 50 cents to me. At least that's how my brain works. So
100%.
yeah,
And it's also nice to incentivize the person placing the order. We talk about sample drops, going out, dropping food off. This is the best marketing tool that you have. You're paying 30 cents on the dollar, a leave behind. But it's also important to try to incentivize that person that is placing lunch orders, right? So maybe when this gets delivered, you give that person a 20% off the next catering order, or something for herself to take her family, or himself to take his family. And there's ways to really drive that repeat visit.
So the last few slides here, we're going to cover what some of the upcoming sessions are going to talk about. We'll go through them a little more quickly because we're going to invest an entire hour into these, but I wanted to share some things with you. So first of all, this is going to be part of next month's webinar. It's going to be the last mile is your brand's final impression, and Aaron Hoffman from Deliver That is going to co-host that with us. When Deliver That actually powers the technology behind our future webinars here, because they're going to do technology better than I do. But what I wanted to share real quick is we're going to have a wonderful hour and 15 minutes or so with them and their team, and not. Again, if you've not been on calls with us before, we don't go heavily into who we are, what we do. We touch on it slightly so you can understand our credibility a little bit of why we're here talking about it. But I found out his little secret. He had posted something on LinkedIn earlier today that talked about a new service that they are offering, which was able to generate like $30,000 in new catering for one specific brand. And I know he's going to want to talk about it next month, so you really want to come and listen to that. But he gave me the lowdown on it today, and I was like, holy crap! It's a bit of a game changer out there. I was very excited to hear because it's gonna be something that sits well for folks really trying to do this third to first party migration. So I think you're really going to dig what's coming up. So the importance of a DSP, whether it's in-house or outsourced, we've got some information here on what that should look like. There's a lot here, so we don't want to necessarily get into it, but there's a lot of steps. Catering expertise, not just food delivery, reliability, and on-time performance. There's a lot of pieces under here that you'll be able to review. But I think the most important part of this here is finding a provider that's going to represent you professionally. And Danielle, I know you've worked with Deliver That. I know you've worked with Meals Now and Delivered and some other companies. What are some of the what are the things that somebody should be asking? Maybe is the right.
Sure, because there's a lot of players out there, and some of them do it better. There are statistics you want to ask for. What is your on-time delivery rate, right? Some industry standard are 95%, but really you want to be at 98%. So what is your on-time delivery percentage? 98% is where you should be. What is your cancellation rate? You want to ask your DSPs, what is your cancellation rate? That should be under 1%. What is the order acceptance and fulfillment rate? Should be at about 99%, right? So the incident rate should be under 1%. I mean, you can go ahead and Google or put into ChatGPT, what are the KPIs I should be tracking against my DSP, but it's really on-time delivery, cancellation rates, order acceptance rate, incident rate. You want to ask them questions like, if there is a problem with the food from a standpoint of delivery, time, no-shows, how do you handle that as a DSP? Who is paying for that? Who is reaching out to the guests? Because this last line sums it up. The customer doesn't care who drives. They care that the food arrives perfectly. And many people who are running catering programs don't really consider that drop off, when really that's the last impression that is being left with your client, right? And that's what's going to make them, of course, come back, as long as the food is good, pricing right, those kind of things. So you've got to really think about that. And so it's critically important that when you are making your pick on a DSP, you are asking these kind of questions. What happens if that didn't get delivered? Who's reimbursing? What happens if I get a 1-star rating because they were 25 minutes late? When companies are ordering 15 minutes, when companies only have a half-hour break for lunch, and you deliver 20 minutes late, that's a problem, right?
Yeah,
so these are critical things. You've got to ask your DSP.
So go through these. There's some important ones here. How does it integrate with your tech stack? They should work in unison together as much as possible. You also, what is the attire that they wear when they deliver? You don't want the infamous flip flops and shorts smelling like patchouli, are the
Right.
person that shows up for a $500 catering order on a moped. So it's like
Right.
understanding those kinds of, and listen, those are both accurate, true
Yes.
situations that have come up with a
Yes.
client of ours.
You know,
I'm not
are
even
they
making up.
required to are they required to deliver food in thermal bags? Some DSPs say, they can deliver whatever they want. You want to have the proper
Yeah.
equipment when they are delivering. What is required of your delivery driver?
And I think we're going to cover next month a little more about in-house delivery versus external delivery. Ideally, we think you should always have a DSP that you are associated with, regardless of if you're doing your own deliveries or not. Because at some point, as your business grows, or certain days you're not going to be able to do them all yourself, having someone that you rely on is going to be very important. And then at some point, you may realize that, hey, I trust these folks. I trust them. In other words, show up when at the delivery and watch them unveil your product and see how they do. That will tell you a lot as well. So we're going to be covering that next month. So I'm excited about that. But when we share this with you, there's a lot of deep dive stuff that Danielle put in here that I think is going to be very valuable for you to go through. Order tech, I think, is the other one that I think is kind of obviously the big one. What are you looking for in an order tech company? How do you own the data? How do you access the data? How can you communicate with the folks in your system? Do they have a drip model? Do they have POS integration that's easy, or am I going to have to take what they have and then input it somewhere else? Do they have remote order taking capabilities? So if you do have a sales leader that is not in the restaurant specifically, can they work from home and take orders? Those are all very important things that we're going to cover. Finding the right one, I think, depends on how much you need. I think where you are in there's different providers out there that have different tiers. So understanding. So we're going to cover in more in depth on this is going to be in our October webinar where we're going to cover the different tiers. What should you look for? One thing, and then I'm going to hand over to Danielle for any questions. The one thing that I will tell you with regards to your DSP, and people go, oh, it's $30 a month, or it's $60 a month, or it's $100 a month, and don't die on that hill. Because if your order technology company is able to generate even a single order for you, it more than offsets the cost of the monthly fee that you're going to be paying. That's one. And then the second side of it is that if they power your website in addition to providing you the ability to do remote order entry and all the data and pieces that go along with it, the cost savings versus letting an Easy Cater power your site is insane. I mean, there doesn't take much to really offset the cost. So I'd say whether it's $30 or $60 or even $100, that extra $30 or $40, I know it adds up, but does it in the grand scheme of things? It doesn't take many orders to really offset the cost. So Daniel, what's your thoughts on?
Yeah, no, you've got to have something in place because catering has gotten so advanced that you've got to be able to track your order. You've got to be able to see when it leaves. You've got to listen. That's why a third party tech partner allows you to do that. You just can't have that one person owning this, being able to keep after all this. If there's a problem, who do they call? Those kind of things. This is where that value comes in and absolutely more than pays for itself. And there's a lot of providers out there. There's Toast, there's Olo, there's Monkey Media. There's many of them, and they're good. What you need to do is take the time and figure out what fits best for your organization, right? Because there are a lot of good players out there that give you opportunity to look, and they have added benefits like they'll go out to bat for you if well, I'm using a mealtime, but if DoorDash or Uber Eats doesn't make the delivery and recollect your money, they give you the opportunity on their platform to answer reviews. So there's a lot of other benefits that go along with
Some
this
some will
these
probably have more
systems.
some will probably have more features than you need, but
Right.
we'll be able to help you with that when we're joined by the folks from Olo. But we're going to cover this as order tech in general. So this isn't don't think it's an hour long Olo pitch. It's not, nor is it an hour long deliver that. They're coming as subject matter experts to kind of help us talk through some of this. So rewards, service, and retention. So Preet from Catering Rewards is going to join us to be able to talk through what a good catering reward system is, because you're walking away from that as well, right? With a third to first conversion, you're walking away from a rewards model, your 5x catering rewards or whatever that you do through EasyCater or through your platform. So you need to kind of have a system in place, and he'll be able to kind of help talk through what conversion looks like, and then how to what's the right model. Is a rewards program that rewards your buyers with your food the right model? Is it or something that rewards with an Amazon card or another alternative? We'll talk through what those look like, because I think those are very, very important. Any thoughts about rewards on here while we're real quick?
No, but I think it's a valid. Do you know how many people, farmer reps, do not want to move away from Easy Cater because they get those points and they get those Amazon gift cards? It's a motivator more than we think about.
Oh, it is. And
Yeah.
that cluster of business is going to be one that's hard to move them. And so part
Yes.
of it is you've got to have something in place in case you do. But then this is why finding your own clients, we touched on, is so very important. Then part of the rewards webinar will also include customer service and customer success. This is my way of defining it. I've always defined it this way. Customer service is about from the day before the order to the day after the order, meaning that we're going to call you, let you know everything is good to go. We're going to execute the day of, and the next day I'm going to call and check and see how everything was. So that's customer service. Customer success is what you do beyond that 48 hours after the order onward. How am I going to communicate with you? What am I going to do to reward you? How am I going to show appreciation to my customers? Those are all elements that are very important, because securing the business is only part of this. It's getting the repeat business is where you really will grow your catering. This is one of the benefits of this. So that's going to be part of that webinar. So the opportunity is far broader than marketplace customers. So understanding that first party catering reaches buyers, that platforms that never surface. The idea that your marketplace is going to confine you to their type of client. What we want to be able to explain to you is that with you going to first party, you have the ability to go get whatever you want, anywhere you want. You control the customer. You control who's going to see your menus and all the things that go with it. So that's going to be part of what Danielle and I do on the last webinar, where we're talking through about identifying who your clients are, because that leads into marketing and sales. So on that last one in December, hopefully you're not broken for the holidays yet when we have it, but we're going to talk through marketing and we're going to talk through sales, because those are the last two pieces in a sense, but they also are the ones that really kind of decide whether this is going to be successful or not. You can have a catering program with DSP and with a order tech and a leader, but the success of the program really all comes down to how many orders did you get and could you grow the business, and hopefully we'll be able to help you with that. So I know that's a few months away, Danielle, but any thoughts on the marketing and sales part of this?
I mean, obviously, it's a critical component on the front end and on the back end. And that's why we kicked off this conversation of having a dedicated owner to this program, because as you can see, and we go through it, there is a lot to it. And somebody needs to be accountable and responsible for it.
And we do believe that you can have in-house and out-house marketing. You can in-house and out-house sales, outbound sales. You can outsource it if you need to. You can keep it in-house. When we'll show you the path you should go, and whether you choose to outsource it or keep it in-house, that's going to be your call. And we don't necessarily feel one way or the other, as long as it's getting done. I mean, if you can afford it and the activities are getting done to the level that you want, I think that's important. What I would say from decision to momentum, if you're getting to this point where you're going, we don't have anyone really leading this in our program, then you need to spend some time contemplating on who that is. And it has to be a person in your organization. And right now, if that person is wearing other hats, then you need to take some of that responsibility excess off so they can focus on this, or find that person. Unfortunately, we have reached a point where there's a lot of very, 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 I'm going to stress that with some exclamation points, talented people who have been laid off in the catering space as of late. It's a shame, because I think that's just part of the direction that we're going as an industry, but there are some insanely talented people out there. I also see brands starting to, I always made it the Major League Baseball model, where we just kept you'd pass coaches around, and coach would coach the Yankees, and the next year they're coaching the Tigers, and then they coach whatever. NBA's like that too. there may be some fresh talent out there that might deserve a shot. And I know there's some really quality people out there that have been laid off that are really hard workers. So that's just me telling you, there's some folks out there. Give them a call, talk to them, find the right person, because there's some really talented folks out there that could use a job and would do an amazing job for you. So just some thoughts on that. So finally, look forward to the next 4 sessions. Again, delivery management, then order tech, rewards and success, then marketing and sales. And that's going to take us through the end of the year. So again, obviously, Independence is a channel you can own. Hopefully we can break away and help you to do that. So wanted to say thank you. We'll send this out tomorrow with the video. We love doing these. They're very important to us. So please, again, always feel free to share with your folks. And if I know some of you come month after month after month. I appreciate that so much. You have no idea. And if you're out there, you know who you are, because I'm sure we've chatted. But thank you for being a part of this. Abby, I'm assuming we don't have anything pending in the Q&A.
No, we do not.
Awesome. That means we do a great job or we do a horrible job, Danielle. I'm not sure which. Anything before we go, Danielle, on your side?
Nope, just thank you.
When it's just us, I always feel like we're not. It's not as special. We don't want to have any guests on with us, so it's just us kind of talking shop. Hopefully, this served its purpose for you guys, and you got some joy and entertainment and some knowledge that we're going to share. But we'll start having guests starting again next month. So for
Absolutely.
now, thank you, and we appreciate it. And happy catering, y'all.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great rest of your days.